Hi, this is Laura Chopin, and I'm with Laura Chopin Healing Arts. This is my podcast, Divine Interventions, and this is my ninth episode. Today, I wanted to talk to you about the idea in A Course in Miracles, which is, as you know, my path. And I try to, talk in a way that is general and I certainly validate and support people on whatever path they're on because we're all wired differently. So the truth, as I say, is path agnostic. And yet today I wanted to kind of zero in on the idea of true forgiveness, which is the primary teaching of A Course in Miracles. So if you're a Course in Miracles student, this should be maybe something you already got clear on in your studies and practice, or maybe this will help you. If you're not a Course in Miracles student, it may have an analogy in your own path. It may help inform you somehow about your own teachings. I know I benefit a great deal from reading teachers of all different pathways because somehow practicing or studying people like Byron Katie or Eckhart Tolle or any of the non-dual teachings, I'm learning something about my practice, my fundamental practice of A Course in Miracles. I'm seeing it differently and having things click. So I hope this will be, appropriate and helpful to anyone. But I wanted to especially clarify true forgiveness because it was an area that I was very confused about. And I think everyone goes through a phase like this when they're students of A Course in Miracles. And one of the things that you figure out eventually in your practice of A Course in Miracles, which is told in biblical language, it repurposes Christian terminology, and it's implied through different means that this voice of A Course in Miracles or the spokesperson is Jesus, although he never gives his name, but he talks about when I was crucified, etc. The thing that you realize is that all the words that you think you have an association to, and you know what they are being retranslated for you. So it's like the words get us in the game, playing the game, but eventually we find out that we've been playing the wrong game because we understood the words from our past. And it's not the way that they're being used. And I think that's a very deliberate phenomenon. And this gets to another amazing aspect of A Course in Miracles, in my view, which is that it's a profound teaching here at this time for this Western, primarily Western mind, a Western mind that now has had Freud for 100 years or however many years and understands the unconscious and understands ideas like projection and that dreams are wish fulfillment and that kind of idea. So it wouldn't have been appropriate 100 years ago because those concepts weren't part of our understanding, our intellect. We didn't have the intellectual perspective. And it's also biblical because it's meeting the Western mind in particular, that so much of it steeped in traditional Christian lore and truth, or teachings anyway. And yet it topples the apple cart, so to speak, as far as the traditional ideas that are so much a part of the Christian tradition. And so how I think of it is that it's taking these words, the language, the metaphor, the symbols, and it's got to use these because that is where the mind is all confused. So it presents them to you or me, to the mind, and then it completely flips them around. So it's a correction at the level that we're confused. But we don't know that that's what's happening necessarily. And so we go in thinking we understand what it's saying. So we think of Jesus as a guy, and we think of, heaven or God a certain way, and we think of forgiveness as a thing where I, as a person, am going to forgive somebody over here as a person because I'm, a good student, and I want to have peace, and I want to be an agent of peace in the world, and all of that. But the highest way of understanding this has nothing to do with that. And eventually we have to get to that highest way. And that's the other aspect to this teaching, which is pretty amazing, is that there are many rungs on this ladder, so to speak. This is a traditional way that we are taught to think about A Course in Miracles is a ladder. And the reason is that within the language of A Course, which is 3 books, the text, the workbook, and the teacher's manual, there are a lot of inconsistencies if we read it literally. And so a better way to think of it is as a poem or a ladder. So it meets us where we think we are, but that position on the ladder is changing as we grow deeper and as the fear in our mind reduces and we allow in more of the truth that it's pointing to. So the thought around true forgiveness. So what I wanted to share around that idea is that true forgiveness is a state of mind, a state of seeing, and not a behavior and not an act. So let's kind of take that apart a little bit. What is that? What am I trying to say? So if we think we know what forgiveness means, like I said, I'm a person and something's happened to me. It didn't go my way, or there was intentional malevolence on another party's part towards me, or maybe just the world has, gone chaotic in my area and I'm suffering in some way, then forgiveness is where I let go of my grievance or my judgment, and I release the other in my mind or the situation in my mind, and I remember that I want peace. Now, that's a perfectly valid way to see forgiveness. That's definitely true. And the reason that we do it has a very deep story to it, as far as A Course in Miracles is concerned, because it wants to awaken us from this dream. So it wants us to forgive what never happened in reality, so that we stop feeling the guilt in our mind and we remember it's safe to come home. So the world is an outpicturing of our guilty projections, and the guilty projections are coming from a belief that's false, which is that I separated from God. And so the Course in Miracles is simultaneously helping us see that we don't want this anymore. It's miserable to be here and to have an ego identity, and also helping us see that, and it's much ado about nothing, because the reality was never affected by this idea that happened in the mind of God. So, true forgiveness. True forgiveness is actually like the keystone. It's like the Rosetta Stone, the keystone in the building that holds everything together. And there are lots of meanings, as I said, as we develop in this practice, in this study, in our relationship to this inner teacher that's helping lead our way in this practice. So we start out, as I said, as people. But where I want you to end up with me today is seeing that this isn't a practice for people, that you are not a people, and I am not a people. We are a projected image, and this is a practice for a mind. And this mind has this phenomenon right now to it. This mind is sitting on a fence in this dream. And on the one side of the fence, it can totally buy into everything that's happening, and it can have opinions and feelings, and it can be high and can be low, and it can judge, and it judges right, it judges wrong. It tries to achieve, it tries to excel, it tries to help, it tries to, shore up its insecurity. All of that is in the movie. And then the other side of this fence that the mind is on in the stream is true forgiveness, which is actually the same thing as consciousness, awareness, crystal, pure witnessing. It's the Holy Spirit in the Course in Miracles. It's spiritual, it's spirit, it's not material. It doesn't come and go. It doesn't change. It observes, it looks, it watches, it witnesses, and it doesn't judge. And that's one of the definitions of A Course in Miracles. And who I am, so to speak, is an aspect of the Son of God sitting on the fence. I'm not the character in the dream. I'm not the Laura, I'm not the body. But when I watch my movie, I'm either believing the nonsense of her life and her feelings and her ideas and her voices that never stop, blah, 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 crazy voice in your head. Or I'm in the pivot over on this side as the Holy Spirit witnessing everything and not judging it. And that's the peace. So true forgiveness isn't really a behavior. It's really not even a thought. It's a pivot off the wrong side of the fence to the helpful side of the fence. That's true forgiveness. And that's a type of seeing. That's holiness. That's Christ's vision. So that's my identity with everyone, by the way. So this pivot on this side of the fence, it's where we all are. It's when I'm seeing from that perspective, then I'm looking at myself wherever I look. That's why my holiness blesses the world and is in everything I see, and God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. All of a sudden, so many of the workbook lessons make so much more sense. And when I'm on this side of the fence, the holiness side of the fence, the true forgiveness vision, then I'm in my shared identity with everyone. So everyone is like little seemingly separated, but we're not really, points of this mind sitting on a fence choosing. So when we all hop into the holiness side, we're just loving ourselves. And when we see others who aren't aware of that self, we're saying it anyway. And we're reminding them silently through our witnessing of who they truly are and are looking through or beyond or past what they're not. That's the game. That's the dream. We're reinforcing the truth in them. And then our behavior does what it does. It looks like whatever, maybe it's a kind word, or maybe it's just not judging them silently, but it can look very normal. Now, see, if we get confused about true forgiveness and we think that it's what people do, then it's really easy to get stupid. It's really easy to, think that you have to condone crazy behavior because you're not going to judge. That's not it. That's not it. So there's something in you judging because maybe someone is doing something really inappropriate, right? But you say, oh, I have to be practicing my forgiveness. So, you don't say anything, or you don't, leave the situation, or you don't, if it's dangerous or, immoral or something, you stay. Well, see, what's really happening possibly, I mean, it's always it's impossible for anyone outside to know the guidance for somebody else. I mean, there's little markers, right? Or, you may get a general sense that this person is in peace. But so what I'm really talking about is really applicable to yourself. And please don't get confused and think you can judge where someone else is. We can't know intentions or motivations of others or their guidance. But what you can do is get really clear for yourself that my job is to be on the right side of the fence, seeing in a certain way. But nothing that I do or say is true forgiveness. It's a seeing, it's not a behavior. And from that non-judgment, something will move me in whatever way is most helpful. That's kind of like the Holy Spirit being in charge of time and space at that point. And this character is part of that system. And it may look like, taking action in the world. And it may look like, following the rule of the land and putting somebody in jail if that's your job. You can be an attorney and practice true forgiveness. When it is so focused on behavior, then you can be absolutely sure that the ego is in charge. And there's some motivation under there. There's some need to be liked. There's some insecurity. There's some fear. There's some distortion, some bargain with the ego. And we can get lost in that And this path is not about celebrities. This path is not about heroes in the dream. The true forgivers. It's about a quiet, silent seeing. It's a mind. It's a perspective in the mind that is seeing through the dream. And it's good to stay in your life exactly the way it is and practice this. Jesus says this is the curriculum. If you think you've got to change it now so that you can go meditate on a mountaintop somewhere, well, it's like you've signed up for a class and then the first thing you did was fire the, or throw away all the books and all the lab lessons. No, 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 no. Stay right where you are. Stay with that crazy, family of 5 if you have them, and practice your lessons of true forgiveness, choosing to see through. If the most helpful thing is for the whole, by the way, because it's not about you, if the most helpful thing for the whole is for you to move on in some way or change your configuration, your life configuration, it will actually happen for you. It'll be like, at one point in my life, I felt like I had a dismantling and things just fell apart, and they were falling apart because that was the most helpful thing, and it was pretty much all at once. And I couldn't have stopped it if I had tried. And then the right symbols and players all came back to me in a whole different way, and I couldn't have orchestrated any of it. And I'm so glad I didn't try. I think if I were to whisper helpful things to my younger self, I would say, don't worry about it. Because for a long time, I thought I had done something really wrong by becoming so sincere and dedicated and all this stuff that I thought I was doing right. And it was just the way it looked for me. It unfolded in a certain way. But the point is, you don't manufacture those. Those came, after 15 or so years of practice. You don't manufacture that. You stay where you are. That's your classroom. That's the content that Jesus can use. This principle of healing, this principle of awakening can use to divest you of your guilt, to divest you of your wanting this mess, right? So true forgiveness. It's not a behavior. It's not a prayer. It's not a special word, or it doesn't look any certain way. You might not actually do anything with the person that you're practicing with. What you do is you choose the Holy Spirit in your mind, and you simply do not judge. You don't count the rights, you don't count the wrongs. You see through it. You remember you are innocent. That this whole thing is a defense against guilt, and the guilt is made up. So just every way that you or every aspect of your dream that you feel that, or your life, let's just stick with that, every aspect of your life, a person, a relationship, a situation, an addiction, anything in your life that you would judge as wrong, or even as that you would judge as right, remind yourself, I'm innocent and this is nothing. Just keep reminding yourself, I'm innocent. And therefore, so is that. And so is that, because I am only looking at myself. And so is that. And so is that. And don't say it out loud. Don't do anything about it. Just notice what happens, Sometimes the truth comes out, the relative truth. Sometimes there's a conversation to be had with someone, but it's coming from a profound love then. And it's freeing for everyone. And it may sound like you're saying you did something wrong. What you're saying underneath it is like to Lazarus, get up, walk, be about your Father's business, and don't separate yourself again. That's profound forgiveness, to look at a dying man and just say, hey, you're innocent, get up, you're not dying. There's nothing about you that was born, and there's nothing about you that will die. Get up and don't forget that. Remember your innocence. Remember who your creator is. And that's ultimately what you're saying if you have those tough words that come out. Tough words. They're actually liberating. Well, so true forgiveness. You're on the fence. I could choose peace instead of this judgment. I will not use the past to decide how to think about this or feel about this. True forgiveness. And you just stay parked in that place on the other side of the fence, and you watch, and you begin to rest in that, and rest in that peace, and rest in that liberation from having to judge and control and defend. And you give that silently to everyone. You are well, you are whole. Holiness, wholeness. That's what that word means, wholeness. And you are me when we're remembering this. We're in the same mind. That's why there are no private thoughts. And that's why remote viewing works. And that's why all this paranormal stuff is possible, because there's this one thing here. It's the one self. And when two or more are gathered without judgment, then that's where this profound remembrance can come in, right? This healing. So that's what we can do for each other in all the ordinary ways that we join. Just remember what this is for. There's nothing important here except for the remembering in every moment who we are. So I think that's good for now. And I wish you lots of peace. All right, bye-bye.